What? Is this thing on?
Where did all my shit go? God damn it!
Are you ready for this one? UCR. We're saying what we want, give it to you non-stop. Any place, anytime, not afraid to speak our mind. That's just the way we roll, we never gonna go. Unstoppable, original, uncensored radio.
Oh my God. I'm on such a short leash right now. Okay, this wire is like literally coming out of my tits and like going up to the camera, and I can't handle it. Can we just talk about that for a minute? Like during the show, I am. I can't even handle it. But I know we're really excited because like Todd Farmer's here. Can we talk about how exciting that is?
Katie and I got so excited that we're cosplaying. I'm Chad from the Friday the 13th game, and you guys can play with me on PS4 and Steam. Just message me your game handles and I will play with you.
And I'm just a random 80s victim. I'm just so freaking excited. I'm fangirling out hard.
How do you want to be killed? Do you want to be like the bitch in the sleeping bag that gets smashed on the tree, then like burn?
Although, one of the best kills in Jason X was when they freeze her face or her head.
Oh,
and then he picks her up and just smashes her against the thing. Oh, and Kane Hodder.
That was one of the most intense kills.
Kane Hodder is my favorite Jason. So I'm just so stoked to talk to Todd. I got to know everything about Kane. I got to know everything.
Oh, that's cool. Listen, I went back and watched, like, so Jason X, like, I was so young, you know, when I was terrified of horror movies when I was a kid. So that was the first one that I was kind of old enough and into them that I would go to the theater. You know, I went to the theater to see it. And it, to me, I love the fact that it kind of was in on a joke about the fact that there were so many of them. So I loved the one chick, like, towards the end, you know, where she was like, this is going to suck so bad. And she, like, gets sucked out of the damn space. Oh, that was my favorite. That one's my favorite. And I swear, Luke and I were talking about it earlier. I'm like, I swear there's another cut where you really get to see her, like...
I'm sure I've seen it too. There was like gore there, and like she got sucked through. But I've looked it up, and there's like nothing said.
Like,
but I'm sure
I
may or may have not, and I can't admit to this, but I may or may have not seen a screener of the film before it was released, and I think that's where I saw the gorier kill.
Well, that could have been, you know, I had a relative that may or may not have had a video store, so I used to get those, you know, when they were still in theater.
Screeners,
yeah, with like the cuts. So it could have been from there. I don't know.
I went on a really bad date to see my Bloody Valentine 3D. At least the movie was good because the date sucked. He was not memorable. Not at all. But I always think the 3D movies, as cheesy as they are, they're so freaking cool. It's you know, jump scares when executed correctly, they're a lot of fun. Like, you're in the horror genre, you either love them or you hate them. But I think when they're done right, they're a lot of fun.
Todd was in that one.
Todd was in that one.
Todd's in all of his films. I don't think there's many films Todd hasn't written that he is cast in as well. Hollywood just was like, oh, well, you got to do this role as well after he writes it. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool.
We also need to discuss with Todd if he dies in every film that he writes, because I'm seeing a pattern here.
Who doesn't, though? Who doesn't want to die? Like, if you're writing a horror movie, kind of isn't that the thing? Like, you want to go and be like somebody that gets murdered.
Oh, God,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was my goal, to be in a bad movie and get killed in a really awesome way. Who wants to make it?
Katie, we can make this happen. We can actually do a slasher film. When I come over to the States after COVID's all gone, we will do a slasher film.
I'm in.
We have to.
Like, make me like the final-ish girl. Like, I think I make it to the end and then I get killed.
Like the third, like the second last girl. You'll be like the Melissa in part 7. You know, you nearly made it, but then you just made one poor choice and axe hits you in the head.
Oh, hey, kind of sounds like my love life. But anyways.
This bitch. Oh my God, with her. No, I've always wanted to be like the gay guy, you know, the sweet, funny one, but that he gets like brutally like murdered real quick. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
no, you're like one of the opening kills. I reckon they should do that. You know, like your car
that's like
breaks down.
wisecracking.
You're
Like,
having
what
your
you gonna
argument
do,
with your
bitch?
gay
What you gonna do?
husband.
A great
But I want
And
to
then
go out
Jason's
like,
just like,
but you
these
remember
two are
like
too obnoxious. Bang,
Kelly
bang.
Rowland, and like Freddy versus Jason, which I hated that movie. I thought it was
You
ridiculous.
eat
But
your fucking words. That
oh,
movie
that
is
shit was
spectacular.
bullshit.
Go away.
Bullshit.
Go
That
away.
was like Jason Goes to Hell. That movie could just go suck a dick. It was just.
I didn't like Jason Goes to Hell.
I didn't
thought
understand it. There was no point in it.
There was
The
too many
storyline
gears
was
being changed and
bullshit.
Okay, whatever.
Blech. I
Fine.
just pretend it doesn't exist.
I'll give in to the Freddy or the
Well, that's-
Jason Goes to Hell, but don't you dare talk shit about.
I want to
Freddy
know what he
versus
thinks.
Jason.
Like, what, because really, like, what happened to that? Like, are we just pretending that doesn't exist in this timeline? Like, because they kind of just, you know, sugarcoated. I want to know.
Well, Freddy vs. Jason was set before Jason X.
Well,
So,
no shit,
like,
but
you
I'm
know-
talking about Jason Goes to Hell. Like, because I'm fine with, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
no,
the
it
new
was-
Halloween series, we just pretended
I
all the
was
other
just gonna
shit.
say it's just like the what was it,
Yeah, so
Halloween
I'm
4?
fine with it.
Like we're just kind of
Like,
forgetting
if
it
we're
happened.
just-
Season
yeah,
of the
like,
Witch.
If we're pretending like Jason Goes to Hell didn't happen, I'm really okay with that because it was a
All
piece
right.
of shit.
All right, fine. I'll concede. But I'm never going to concede about Freddy versus Jason.
I mean, it was a fine movie for what it was. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. But I mean, like, just come in
It
with
should
this,
never have been a
story.
Friday the 13th film.
It
should never have been a Friday the 13th
like
film.
the
It should have been its
daughter
own film.
sister or whatever the hell it was, and the
No.
knife thing. I was like,
Nope.
what is this shit?
Sorry.
What is
it had
this?
a great Freddy versus Jason had a great soundtrack and the movie was awesome.
No, Kelly Rowland was my favorite part of that. Oh, Freddie, what you gonna do? What you gonna do, Freddie? What
Yeah,
you look for?
Yeah, she was pretty
Like
awesome.
that's I want to be like the gay asshole, you know, and then they come up behind me like some bitch.
Well, listen, Jeff, a great opening kill, like you do it right, and it's more memorable than half the movie. I mean, look at Scream.
Yeah, well, I was just
You
gonna
had
say,
Drew
yeah. I
Barrymore
was
getting
just saying,
killed in the
Halle
opening
Berry.
scenes, and people like that better than the like.
And they
stars of the
built that
movie.
film as if she were going to be the star of that film because she was the star at the time.
Right.
And so they build Scream as like, you know, Drew Barrymore was even on the poster and, you know, starring Drew Barrymore. So everyone was like, oh, cool. Drew Barrymore's doing another horror film. And then when she was just like that brutally murdered, like it was a horror. I actually think that scene makes me so unsettled.
Oh, and you hear her mom listening to her dying on the phone. Oh, that stuck with me.
Well, that really revamped all of the horror movies because they were just kind of petering out. We didn't really have much. I remember like around that you had like Village of the Damned. And it was like, you know, kind of one of those B like horror movie basket bins, you know, with Kirstie Alley.
Oh, was that those ones with those little kids
that was
with the really white hair?
Yeah. With
Kirstie Alley
Christopher
had
Reed.
no business being in that movie. Can we just
I loved
agree on that?
movie. I was so devastated when they put her on that table and she had to cut her stomach open. I was like, no, not the baby's mother. No.
Oh God, best thing she ever did in that movie.
No, I
Sorry.
love Kirstie.
I
Look,
can't.
Listen.
I can't.
Listen.
I can't.
Listen.
Mm-mm. We're not going to see
I
eye to
love
eye
you.
on this.
Listen. Everybody has different opinions.
But mine is more important.
I still love her.
She's great. She just didn't belong in that movie. But I also
neither did Superman.
This is true. But, you know, I do agree with you on saying Scream kind of revamped the genre because, you know, it made it okay to be silly but still scary.
Yeah,
you know,
and like we were all around teens then, like, right? Like young teens.
A lot of the
like,
times people are afraid to be a little silly.
Right.
I thought it did it well in that it took it tongue in cheek, but it still kept the horror elements, and I really liked it. And I really loved all that wave of like 90s horror. I know a lot of at the time people were like, oh, it's because, you know, the 80s horror was the big thing still during the 90s. Everyone loved Freddy and Jason and rah. But I love Scream, and obviously a lot of people did. And I liked, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, I think is one of my favorite horror films. That chase with Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think I ranked that as one of the top 3 chase scenes in any horror film.
Out of all the shows I've ever done, I never thought this would be one of them.
Well,
This is
here
probably
you
gonna be my
are.
favorite show.
I know. I'm like, this is really.
This is going to be the best show.
Yeah.
And
yeah, this
you know,
is some
80s
shit.
horror is my jam. Like I love 80s horror, but 90s horror is so fun. Like it
Well, I think
like
there was a
with Scream, and I know what you did last summer.
Sure.
Urban legend.
Well, 80s. I
Urban
thought,
Legend. Oh my god, I forgot about
well,
that.
what was that
I
other
need to
one
watch
with
that.
that really skinny broad, Delijah. Oh, Deliza. Wrong Turn was the other one.
Wrong Turn with
Ooh,
Eliza from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Wasn't that 2000s though?
Or was it? I don't know.
I think that might have been
No,
the 2000s.
that was around 2000. Yeah. But she was carrying the torch.
It was 2003.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, that was a great film too. It was a little bit.
Great, yep.
It was a little bit Texas Chainsaw. It was a little bit Scream. It was a little bit like it was. I
Those
like
Have
that film.
Eyes. It had a little bit of everything in it.
Does anybody
Yeah.
And then
remember
they had
the
to
movie
reboot Texas
Vamps?
Chainsaw Massacre, and we're just not going to go there. We're just not. We're not going to talk about
The horror movie Vamps with Grace Jones.
it.
No, I never saw it.
You want a treat?
You aren't missing out. I promise.
Have you
Watch
seen
the
it?
original. What was that?
Are you saying Grace Jones is shit?
I am not saying Grace Jones is shit. I'm just saying the reboot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was shit.
Oh, well. Well, no.
I don't care.
With what's her?
No, I don't care how hot Jessica Biel is. It was terrible.
Oh, so that scared the shit out of me. I watched it by myself. I had to turn it off. When that came out, I had to turn it off. I was scared. I was like, whatever year that was. I was in my 20s. I was.
And you know, Katie, I enjoyed
scarier.
it because I thought it had a great. That's another film that it had a great chase scene at the end. I love the final girl versus the killer at the end. She's not one of my favorites, but I thought they did it well.
We're never going to agree on this.
You're never having it, are you?
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not having it. Next thing you're going to tell me you enjoyed House of Wax in 2005.
I did. I enjoyed when Paris was like.
Of course he did. Do you see him? Do you see how he's dressed right now? Do you have any doubt in your fucking mind that he didn't enjoy Paris Hilton and House of Wax, bitch?
I will give them this. They had a fantastic marketing strategy saying, watch Paris die. Like, it was a spoiler, but everyone wanted to come watch Paris Hilton die. So,
That's
give them that.
horrible for her.
You need Jesus.
It wasn't my marketing strategy. It was theirs.
But the scary part is it worked. The world needs Jesus.
It did work, and she embraced it. She's just like, yeah, all right, whatever. That's hot.
See, I'm that problem though. Like, if horror movies have a lot of like plot holes, I'm picking them apart. Like, I want something. The ones that really get me, like The Descent. That one where those crazy like lesbian wannabe bitches like go crawling in the cave and they're like splunking or whatever the fuck it's called, and they're like all in there and they're like ooh, and then they get like trapped in there. I was one
hell of a cat fight in that movie.
Let me tell you what, I was staying at my friend's house in the middle of God's nowhere, okay, in the boondocks, house sitting for her. Of course, a lesbian would have this movie. Women trapped in a fucking cave. It's her wet dream. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure she's got a little rabbit friend. And I'm like watching this movie, you know, and she's out in the country, so she's got windows everywhere and there's no curtains or anything. You know, like, it's like, oh, we're in the country. We don't need those things. Bitch. I was putting blankets up. I was not looking out the windows because I was like, those things are going to be looking in. I was terrified. I couldn't do it. The signs, that kind of shit.
Now, if you want like a great kind of old school slasher with the modern twist, it's another Kane Hodder film. Yes, you're going to find a theme here. It's called Hatchet, and it's like if you enjoy that kind of slasher, bloody kills that kind of make you laugh because they're so ridiculous, but still make you kind of like the Hatchet trilogy. Well, actually, it's not a trilogy anymore. It's a franchise because there's a fourth. But that's another story.
Did either of you see The People Under the Stairs?
Yes! Oh my God, that scared me so much when I was little. Terrified.
Luke just passed out? Was that not so fabulous? That poor, what was his name? That poor son bitch that lived in the furnace. They cut his tongue out.
Oh God.
What was his
I
name?
vaguely remember it because I remember
He was in some
I was so scared when.
name.
Well, I was really scared of horror films as a kid, and I remember like when
me
the
too.
People Under the Stairs come out, and I had older brothers, so they would always be watching them, like a lot older. They were teens when I was little.
Probably horror movie that I was really like into that I thought like it cracked me up, but it scared the shit out of me at the same time.
Well, you know what was funny?
And the dolls. Do you remember that? Where the car gets stuck and the little girl has like the white stuffed animal bear and the dolls like come and they protect her against the evil stepmother and shit.
Yeah, I remember them.
My friends,
Yes.
I hate to interrupt.
Oh.
But we have a guest.
Oh, do we have a sexy man?
Bring him in. Let's do this.
Well, all right. Come on, Miss Bitch.
Let me introduce you to one of the masters of horror, Todd Farmer. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Howdy, y'all.
Hey, Todd.
So excited to talk to you, Todd.
How's it going?
As you can see, we have dressed up for you tonight.
I'm doing Chad from, the Friday the 13th game,
Right.
and Katie's just gone full side pony.
I was ready for it. Just random 80s victim
Nice.
of Jason Voorhees.
How have you been, Todd?
I've been excellent. I haven't seen you in forever.
I know, like, what was it, like 2003?
Yeah.
Somewhere early, it was like, 2003 or 4, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we, actually, so how I met Todd, we hung out at a camp. This shows how much of a nerd I am. I used to be, as a teenager, a member of a Friday the 13th forum. And we hung out there, and then, like, there was a couple who ran it, Blake and Brenna. And Brenna sort of really helmed it all, though. Like, she was big into it, and she's now a PhD academic. Like, she's gone places. But at the time, she's like, let's all meet up, and let's meet at a camp. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I flew all the way from Australia as like a teenager. And we hung out at this camp. And then like a few days in, they're like, oh, did you know Todd Farmer's coming? And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, he's coming to stay with us, like camp with us. Because we're all staying in like these cabins. And I'm like, that's crazy. And so Todd and his wife showed up. And we had a blast. Like there was some weird stuff going down that camp. I remember
Sounds
the
like
talent
making
night.
a horror movie.
I did drag at the talent night, and Todd's wife and I were attacked by raccoons, and I was running in heels as you do in the woods. And we had a blast. It was great.
We did. There was a lot of drinking, if I remember correctly.
There was, and also amazed it was so cheap over there, because here we're taxed to the hilt for alcohol. Like you just pay through the nose. So it's like 4 Bacardi Breezes were like $2.50 or something at the time. Like, yes. It'd be like putting them in at Walmart too. Like they sell alcohol. That blew me away too. They just sell alcohol in the supermarket. I'm like, what the hell? Like here, there's like, you don't mix groceries and alcohol. They're two separate entities.
I remember one morning the park ranger came banging on Blake and Brenna's door because we were staying with them, and somebody had thrown everything up all over the commons area or something, and they had to go clean it up. Good times.
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you.
I hope not.
I remember who it was.
Well, look, Todd, before we get into, because I really want to just talk horror with you.
Good.
People have been gathering evidence here that I've heard, and there was a picture from that camp that keeps circulating.
We look lovely.
I'm ready.
I don't know about if Jesus Christ.
I mean,
I looked flogged out. And that was talent night, guys. So we all had to sing or do something. So I sang with the band. We had a live band there.
What?
So I did AC/DC, I think. Like I was going for it that night. But That's later in the night. That's like, 20 Bacardi breezes in, I reckon.
I can see it on your face. You are just done for. Oh my goodness.
But
you were going for that Julia Roberts look, weren't you? That hooker with a heart of gold.
I don't know what that was. Who were you? Like, what was the look you were going for?
Slut.
I have no idea, actually. I was a really baby drag then. I was just like, whatever, like just throw makeup and a wig on. I'm a drag queen.
It didn't even look like you were wearing makeup. Like, I'm staring at this picture. I don't see any makeup on you.
I am. There was another photo, though, I remember, because they staged it. Because I remember a guy from that's the one.
There we go. That's a better angle.
Oh, and I just love how Mel's in the background, like, what the fuck?
Oh my god.
The
How
pink
dare
boots.
she?
See?
Yeah, just random. It was 80s, okay? 80s.
Natural habitat. His leg up around a man's waist. I'm telling you.
Those are the tame pictures.
I believe it. I believe it. Look it. He came over and stayed this summer for a couple weeks.
So you know.
Yeah, that boy was crazy. We got some footage.
You're not running footage.
Check Pornhub.
Oh, fuck off. He's lying. Let's just get straight into like talking about horror. Let's do that.
Jeff, how much dirt do you have on me? I'm trying to remember this.
Katie, focus.
We can negotiate price later.
Listen, now I'm scared. That bitch has everything. I'm sorry. I'm focused now.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Jason X obviously was that your first actual like big film that you wrote?
It was the first film that came out.
Yeah. And like, because I remember I read your original treatment where like your main girl, your final girl, Rowan, was called Rizzo.
Yeah.
And like I was reading through that, like how much of that original script do you think made it to the screen?
I mean, a pretty good chunk of it. It was more. The original was a lot more expensive, if I remember correctly. There were, I think, in the beginning when they find Jason frozen, there were countermeasures in place, like robots and stuff like that. That robotic spiders, I think, if I remember, had lasers or machine guns or something on them on their backs. So I mean, it got, and then there was a anti-gravity scene that obviously we were never going to be able to shoot that. So I mean, it changed a little bit, and then throughout the course, there's always rewrites. I mean, there were dozens and dozens of rewrites, but it's, you change for actors or you change. I'm in my tool shed, by the way. My daughter's in my office on a Zoom call, and so this is my man cave. But yeah, it got cheaper, but other than that, there was. Oh, and look, nice curtain. Not a lot of man caves have the curtain or the red lips. I guess it's over here. Anyway, it was good. The first script.
Yeah. Like, but do you feel like because I vaguely recall conversations because, as I said, I was pretty heavy on the Bacardi breezes during the camp. I remember like you saying though, like what you wrote, like obviously whatever someone writes and what transpires to screen will always be so different. Do you feel that though the final product like captured what you were trying to do with your original script, like with your idea?
No. I mean, yes and no. I guess I always, and I've softened to it over the years, but I always thought it would be I thought it would be Alien or Aliens.
That's what I was saying to the guys. I'm like, I remember him saying he wanted to be like Aliens, like that real grungy kind of look. And like, it would sort of, Jason would fit in as like, he was more or less the alien on the ship. Yeah.
I mean, it was replace the aliens with Jason. And that was the concept. I mean, we had the Marines. I basically ripped off elements of Alien and Aliens for the structure. So, I mean, I've said that for years. I never made any. I mean, you steal from the best, and I thought that was a great concept. Plus, I was aware there were other in space characters in the horror genre that didn't do as well, and it never scared me at all. I just thought, well, Aliens worked, so obviously scary can work in a sci-fi world. So it never, I never thought it wouldn't do well. I didn't expect them to put Uber Jason on the poster and in the trailer, but I thought that would be a surprise.
Yeah. And I think they they polished it a lot too, because it was almost like Star Trek does Jason in the production values. Like everyone was really pretty.
Yeah.
Everyone was really clean. Like, you know, it was just like a futuristic. It was good. Like I actually really enjoy the film and I appreciate it for what it is. But, you know, as far as like a Friday the 13th film goes, like I think that Aliens approach would have suited the mood a lot better rather than them making it so glossy and pretty.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the times too, because Scream had just come out. And so
exactly,
turned everything on its head. And then when we were doing this, nobody was doing horror. It was New Line. It was Dimension. Horror was a stepping stone. That's where you started. You didn't, you weren't up against A-list writers the way it is now. Now horror is everywhere. And, you know, the biggest in the business are doing horror. You have a comedian who is hugely successful and then goes into the horror genre. I mean, and his movies are fantastic. So horror has blown up, but back then it wasn't like that. You would go out to places and they would literally look at you like you were an alien. They didn't like that we were doing horror. In fact, I remember after I left Cunningham and went off on my own, there were places that I went who they called me in to do a movie or to talk about concepts, and they didn't like horror. They were just doing it because Scream had done so well. They felt like they had to. And it was a weird time back then. So you're working with people who...
It was. And like, but horror was always seen as like that dirty film as well. Like, you know, there was like, it went like porn, then probably really bad martial art films, and then horror. Like they were just seen on that lower level of films. Like they weren't appreciated as art at all.
I mean, yeah, I agree. And I think in a lot of cases, porn was higher. They just wouldn't say it out loud.
And, you know, nowadays with the horror, if you can call it horror, it's more really, don't get me wrong. I'm a genre devotee. I'll love it forever. But horror movies these days are more suspenseful and dramatic. And when you get down to like the hardcore fans, we still like the slashers and we still like the campy movies like, you know, Evil Dead. And we still want to, you know, we still want something to get the blood boiling and get a little freaked out by something. Nowadays, they just want to be edgy and art house. And I like those movies too, but man, there's nothing like a good slasher. And Uber Jason was anything but polished and pretty. That man was horrifying. Oh my God. He was scary.
Well, actually, I want to talk about like the kills in Jason X as well. Like, you know, did you actually write every single kill for that film, Todd, or did like the effects crew on that sort of take their own liberties with it?
I mean, yeah, I wrote them all. They weren't all my ideas. The face freeze was Noel Cunningham. He called me.
Oh, really?
That was one of the best.
Can we show a screen of that, James, quickly? Because I actually found just.
I was just
like
telling the guy that's one of the best kills in horror.
It's a great kill. I can't remember exactly how.
There we go. He's going to show us. He's going to show us what he's been talking about as well.
I know he's talking shit to people. We're going to accidentally get a Johnson shot.
Oh my goodness.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah, no, because I
hang on a second, people. I have like 3 Facebook tabs open trying to find the right one, and this is not working with me here. So bear with me.
What kind of third word bullshit is this?
Well, so how is that concept, you know, born? Like, who gets the idea? I'm just gonna like dunk this chick's head into whatever it was that, what was it that she was dunked in?
Liquid nitrogen.
Okay, so where do you come up with the idea of liquid nitrogen and just beautiful?
There we go.
It was all Noel. He called or he emailed or something, but it was very simple. It was he was giggling because he'd come up with this idea, and he said, you know, what if, you know, Jason takes one of the lab kids and dunks their head in liquid nitrogen. dunks their face in liquid nitrogen. And it was just the idea. And so, I mean, it was once he said that, it was easy.
It became like an iconic kill now.
It is.
Yeah,
And he did it to like one of the prettiest women in the world. It was like horrific.
You had so much hope for her. She was smart. She was pretty.
Yeah.
She wasn't taking any shit from the crew. You'd like, that girl's making it to the end. Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
she should have been, she was like the final girl before that bye girl.
Yeah. And I love the idea that, she's banging on the window and you can't hear her. And I like all that. And then it gets to the point you think maybe she'll survive. And then, you don't survive that.
There's no coming back from that. But it's still it's so great. Like, it's so simple, but so effective.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
I love it. And Kane Hodder is one of my favorite Jasons. So
he's a lovely man.
I met him at a horror con a few years back. He is just so nice and just one of the best Jasons out there. The best Jason. The best.
Really
there we are.
Oh, there you go.
Baby Katie with Kane Hodder.
I was going to say, he's a little bit taller than you, Katie.
He is a very big man. I mean, you kind of got to be kind of built to play a person like Jason Voorhees. You need to be, burly and broad shoulders, and you need to be intimidating. And
you look like you're going to be able to kill people pretty easily.
Yeah, and Kane, I got to tell you, Kane kind of fits all that, but he's the nicest guy on the planet.
I mean, Todd kind of looks like he could kill folks. He's kind of got that build to him.
Well, I haven't in a long time.
But Jason killed him.
But Todd's characters are great too. Like,
well, hey, he died trying to save his little gay friend in the movie.
Well, that kind of leads into the next question, Todd. Do you die in every film you write?
Do I? Yeah.
Well, you died in Jason X. You died in Trick, which was great.
I suppose I
My
did.
Bloody Valentine. You definitely died.
Yep.
Which?
Drive anger.
And is that your choice? Is that your choice to die in all these films? I mean, we all agree that if you're going to be in a horror film, you got to have a really fantastic death.
Well, with Jason X, either Sean or Jimmy, I don't remember which, somebody came to me and said, "Do you want to be in it?" And I said, "Yeah." I mean, I hadn't acted in a movie, but I had, I was Frederick in the Pirates of Penzance. So, I mean, come on. I was Valjean. One day more. I've done all of that stuff. So, I mean, I liked the idea of being in something. And they said, "Well, what do you want to play?" And so I was thinking, but they were like, "Well, do you want to play one of the Marines?" I think we're calling Grunt's thing. And I said, "Yeah." And I chose Dallas because he was the biggest part. I'm a dick that way. And but with the next time was Bloody Valentine. And that was, we were shooting in Pennsylvania, and I think Lionsgate wanted to hire local to play that part. And if you've ever done anything gory in a movie, it's tough because you do the kill and then you go rush to the shower and you wash off and you come back and you do the kill again, and it's exhausting. And then to throw sex on top of that, we're going to shoot this in a day, maybe 2 days. If you're not prepared for that, if it's just a local guy, and I'm sure there are local actors in Pennsylvania that are fantastic. But my worry was, and Patrick had called me up saying, this is what they want to do. And my worry was, what if something goes wrong? What if the guy chokes? What if, we don't have a lot of time? We don't have a lot of money. What do we do? And Patrick said, "Yeah, I know. Will you do it?" And so I asked Mel, who you've met at the time, saying, "Do you mind if I do that part?" And she's like, "You mean the sex scene?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Rock star." And so, by the way, we're divorced now. So that was not a good idea in the long run.
I actually asked Mel, Todd, could I show you that photo of her, like, watching on with me in drag with my leg around you? And she's like, "I'd be really disappointed if you didn't."
No, she was great about, she was great about it. And she got it, at least for, I think it was in My Bloody Valentine, she got a special thanks at the end of the movie. It said, "We'd like to thank Mel for letting us get Todd naked."
Oh, beautiful.
Unique special thanks.
Well, now I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
And then no, go ahead.
I was just going to sort of go on to like when you were writing your final girl as well, like did you look over the other final girls of the Friday series and sort of try and construct Rowan from them, or was Rowan just like you were just going to run with her and that was your?
No, it was. I mean, because we were. I mean, it was a long road to get this movie made. For starters, Freddy vs. Jason was in development, and my idea was I don't want to hurt what they were doing. So to do a Jason 10, which is what we're calling it, Friday 13th Part 10, had we done that and did it in modern day, that could have very well screwed up the chronological thing they were doing. And so that's why we pushed it into the future. And so it was, I'm surprised we got the movie made, to be honest.
Well, didn't it sit on the shelf for a little while after it was like in the can? Wasn't there like some issues with, because I just remember like talks on the forum, like, you know, the film should be released now, but it's going to get released later. Like, were there some issues with them sitting on it to launch it?
Yeah, it sat there. It sat on the shelf forever. It feels like it was forever. I know part of it was because Mike DeLuca left New Line, and he had been the guy who greenlit the movie. And so when that happens, a lot of times there's nobody left to champion it. So it was just sitting there. And then seems like it went well over a year. And then that's when they started launching, because we were the first movie. We'd actually went from film to digital. I think we were the first movie that actually did that. And so
I remember that now. Yeah, because they didn't shoot on on actual film anymore. You were the first one, and it was like a big controversy at the time. Everyone was it won't look the same. And
we shot on film, but they transferred it all to digital, which had never been done. And I remember Jimmy and David were in editing, and Lucas, the folks from LucasArts called to ask them how they did it, because they were going to do it for the Star Wars movies. And so, but what that did was that meant that the movie ended up on hard drives. And when the movie ended up on hard drives, it ended up online. And so I remember there was a time when, I want to say it was Pirate Bay. I can't remember who it was, but it was the number one download and the movie hadn't come out yet. And so people were watching it. It's just, when the movie came out, nobody did. So.
Oh, see, that's shit. Hey, but I guess that's something that the industry faces now all the time, because there's always leaks. They'll do a screening. Mm-hmm. And people will film it and release a screener of it online. And it's sort of, I just think it's shit. I think, if you really are looking forward to a film, you should pay to see it, because you want to see more of those kind of films. So,
well, it's funny you say that. Adam Green, with his fourth Hatchet film, he did a tour of small theaters screening the film, because he just didn't want it to get leaked. And he wanted the fans who would actually pay to see it to get to see this movie. And he answered questions about it, and he met with the fans, and it was a really great experience. And I'm glad directors and genre people like that get to do stuff like that, because when things get leaked, people start talking about it, and it gets spoilers, and people are just kind of turned off to go see it. And to keep a genre alive, you got to support it, you got to put money into it, and it's up to the fans. And I don't want horror to die anytime soon.
It shan't.
It really better not.
No. Horror's not going anywhere. And the worse the world gets, horror always keeps going. So as bad as the world is right now, horror is going to be big again.
So next year we're going to see a lot of COVID-19 horror pandemic films.
Oh, we don't want to see those, but we want to see horror.
Oh, we definitely horror.
Yeah, I'd rather die of a spear through the head than of a respiratory disease where I have to lay there dying alone. That's far more horrific than anything that a horror movie could capture. That's just shit.
Well, a lot of like you were saying about, I think you were saying about Jordan Peele, correct? About a comedian. I mean, his movies are really kind of spot on about stuff going on nowadays. Racial tensions, and they're spectacularly done. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
And you got to dig real deep to find it, but it's good. It's real good. But still, love a good slasher.
I actually think we are in the best time for horror ever. I've never seen it like this. I mean, literally, when I started, it wasn't everywhere, and now it is everywhere. It's all over TV. It's all over video. It's not just one kind of horror. It's you have independent films and you have great big giant films, and it's just, I think the choices are fantastic. And the reason I've always liked horror, and I don't know that I did in the beginning, because when I came out here, I wanted to tell stories, but I thought I wanted to, tell big action movies and that sort of thing. So I had the same, I think, and the older I've gotten, the more I realized that even at the time, I criticized a lot of the studios for looking down their nose at horror, but I think I thought of it as a stepping stone myself. And it wasn't until I actually started writing it and started creating it, because I'd always written stories. I'd always told stories around the campfire, but horror was and I didn't know this instinctually, but horror is the one genre that has everything. It has comedy, it has drama, it has heartbreak, it has romance, it has sex, and it has horror. So it's got everything, where you don't get that with a romantic comedy. A romantic comedy, you get some funny and you get some love, and that's it. Horror is everything. So it is, if you can do horror, you can write anything. So
I think it's like why shows like American Horror Story, like they just did the 1984 series. Yeah. I think that's why it did so well, because it could just do it all. It could open so campy with them all working out in aerobic gear in the 80s, and then it went into like the Friday the 13th style slasher. Then they just kept, like always American Horror Story does, they just kept flipping the switch, and it kept getting crazier and crazier. And but they could just go to anywhere with it. Like, you're not limited to like a romantic comedy. You're not going to suddenly have someone get an axe through the head, are you?
No.
Whereas in a horror movie, you could have a romantic comedy playing out during that whole scenario. Absolutely. Really.
And we have several that have done that. So that's why I think it's absolutely the best genre. And I wish I had realized that much earlier.
Get down.
Oh, hey, buddy.
That's a black cat too. How fitting.
Listen, bitches.
What I was going to say about American Horror Story, and what they do really well is they take like every subgenre of horror and they just do such a great job with it. I mean, they did a haunted house, they did witches, they did slashers, they do apocalyptic, they do such a good job of this stuff, and it stays fresh and it stays interesting. And like you said, it has everything. It's funny, it's scary, it's dramatic, it's romantic. That is a beautiful way to describe the horror genre. You are absolutely right. It really does have everything.
Well, I mean, and also look at Hannibal. Hannibal completely pushed the envelope on television. I mean, we had Dexter, but Dexter was HBO, right? So
it was.
Showtime.
Yes, it was pushing the envelope.
But it might have been Showtime, but you're right.
Oh, Showtime, right? But but Hannibal was, network television, and the stuff that they did on Hannibal changed everything. I think brilliant storylines and just scary, disturbing visuals. So I think we live in a good.
What were you going to say before, Jeff?
I don't know. I've been having audio issues like a son bitch this whole time, and I've been so mad because things have been going so far. And I'm like, I hate everybody. I'm gonna be over here and commit a fucking horror movie. It's terrible.
Well, you sound good to us.
You sound good, Jeff.
Now I've been exiting and leaving the show. I'm like, fuck StreamYard. You know what? I'm gonna get an axe and fucking start chopping heads off here in a minute. I'm gonna be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah.
All right, kid. On topic. And
I'll give you on topic.
Listen. I was going to ask a question. Easy. What's your favorite scary movie?
Showgirls.
He went right for it. Bravo, Jeff.
I mean, I could never have a favorite. There's just simply no way. I don't have.
I can't say either.
Okay,
I mean, certainly, there are movies that influenced me when I was a kid and I first saw Jaws. I mean, it changed everything.
Yeah, that movie messed me up as a little kid because I was really little when I saw that, like really little. I wouldn't have a bath.
That was
He's coming.
when I was able to
everything.
When I was able to move out and get a real nice apartment and a real nice TV and Blu-ray was coming out, that was the first movie I bought because I wanted to see, on the really high def, and man, it was worth it. That film is just spectacular. And
Alien for me was just utterly terrifying. Halloween messed me up. And, I look back and the movies that influenced me the most. Now, you'd have to throw Star Wars in there because obviously that was a huge influence. But Halloween, Alien, and Jaws and those are scary movies. Those are the movies that influenced me when I was a kid. So I don't know if I have favorite movies because I see movies I love and I see movies that I wish I had been able to step in and do things with. And then there are other movies I watch that I'm like, I'm in awe. I'm like, I would have never thought to do that. And that's brilliant.
Well, Aliens is so different because you really, was there a movie before that really had the female character kind of really, truly kick ass?
Oh my God, Ripley is just spectacular. Like you want a strong, iconic woman.
Weaver.
Yeah.
Like right before the show, I was like, "Stay away from me, you bitch," or whatever.
Well,
James
she was kind of like, really, no one considers Ripley as a final girl in a lot of ways, but she's the ultimate final girl because the psychology behind the final girl is always that, like, the killer is this, big hulking mass. In this case, it was an alien and like so powerful and just destroying everything. And the final girl is like this small, timid person who would never even be able to think of doing the things the killer's doing. And they sort of become each other in the end. And that's always been the concept of the final girl. And I think Ripley really owned that because she became, in the end, like, look at her in Aliens when she's like protecting Newt. Like, she was fucking more monstrous than that alien queen. She was banging that bitch off. She was dumb.
I want Ripley on my team in a bar fight.
And when she was running around in her skivvies at the end of the movie, I was like, hello.
Yeah. No one's mad at Sigourney Weaver and her undies. No one's mad about that.
I rewatched, because I missed all this with my audio issues. And Jason X last night, I was watching it because, I haven't seen it in a long time. And I was like, this dude's got a thing for nipples. I was like, holy shit. That scene with the professor, I was like, I don't know if that was left over from his writing or somebody came in and rewrote that. I'm like, that girl was tweaking those nipples, and then like 2 scenes later, the robot comes in and the skits plus the nipples onto her tits, and then they're falling off. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, this dude's crazy.
This is what you're noticing about the movie?
He was seriously, I'm watching him watch this movie, and he lost it at least 12 times during it. Like, just died laughing.
I just love that. That's what he's getting from this film is nipples.
Well, because here's the thing. I remember, like, I went to the theater and I was telling you guys earlier. And, like, there was because I have such a whack sense of humor. You know what I mean? Like, I watch car crashes on YouTube and start cracking up. You know what I mean? So, it always was a fun ride for me. Like, I always enjoyed it because, like, it had humor in it, whatever. Like, it got it. So, the movie was very fun to me. And the fact that the nipples fell off that robot. Like, after we just had that sex scene where that bitch was, like, tweaking that dude's nipples. She was going in with those things. And she was just like,
well, you don't like me.
I'm like.
Don't get them started, Todd.
I'm looking at these pictures of freaking Todd and Luke, and I'm just like, all right, Miss Girl.
Well, in fairness, I didn't have nipples that night because that was just a padded bra. So... I don't think I was... Actually, I did it for the troops that night. Remember we had like a lot of army boys there, Todd, that night at the camp? And they were just like, I can't... One of them was like, he was such a lovely guy. And he's like, I can't talk to you right now, Luke. I'm like, why? And then he's like, because it's messing with my head. It's doing things to me. I'm like, okay, cool. See you tomorrow for a beer.
We need to see. And then the Valentine, I was cut out in that. I couldn't say it because you guys were talking about a sex scene, and I was like, son of a bitch, and I had to hang up, and his ex-wife, and I'm like, oh, sure. Sure, we could see the vagina lips just smacking away while she's running away. We got to see your ass, but we didn't see no penis.
Yeah, I didn't turn around on that one. Turned around and Drive Angry, but it ended up getting cut.
You know what?
I don't even know what to say to you, Jeff.
You go on some other buddy's show and they're going to be like, oh, Jason, you know, it doesn't fit in the canon. What happened to this? What happened to that? I'm more pissed off we didn't get to see the dick.
Back then, the dick was rare. The dick was rare back then. You didn't see a lot of the dick.
You still see it.
Yeah, I remember you saw it in.
Listen, are we going back to this? And I'll say it again. No one wants to see it.
That is so not true.
No one wants to see it.
That's not true.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Todd, there'll be an after show for poor Luke.
The poor Luke.
Can we please get back on?
Like I'm some starving single orphan. I am.
You are.
But...
You are.
Katie, we need to talk about the dick for a bit. We'll be right back with you.
Okay. Don't get Jeff started. He used to ask guests all the time, how many quarters? Many quarters?
It's true. So we used to do the show on Blog Talk and for years. So Katrina couldn't be here tonight. She was on, we call her, what the fuck? Oh my God. Katrina A. Johnson from Nickelodeon's all that. So all the male guests would come on and say how many quarters, because her and I are just sloppy pigs. But now Luke's the male horse, so
I am
really
not.
his job.
I'm such. I'm like
look at that.
I'm
hair,
like a.
bitch. Look at.
I went to town with this. This is not because my hair's really flat and straight. I went to town today. I used my daughter's crimper. Like we were going for it together. I crimped her hair too. She went to daycare. She was all happy. She's like, it's crimped, it's crimped. But she's like,
Buffy,
I was hairspraying it and just crimping it and banging it back. And now I've got like this wave in it. And I thought it looked really cool. I look really 80s.
It looks great.
Yeah.
It looks great. Can I ask you a question about Trick? What was the inspiration for that? Because that had a lot of different feels. Like you know, you got kind of Halloween vibes from it. I mean, obviously, because it takes place on Halloween, but, you know, you get the Michael Myers kind of feel, like you can't take the guy down. And then it's kind of, was there anything kind of topical about it?
Well, Trick, I can tell you where it came from. Trick came from Halloween because we were, a million years ago, we were hired to write Halloween 3D, which would follow Rob's two movies. And that never got made. And so then years later,
oh my God, that was you?
Yeah, well, one of the many, but Patrick and I wrote that, and I loved it. And we wrote it fast. We wrote it in like 8 days because this was right before Drive Angry, and we had to shoot it before we were going to start shooting Drive Angry in January, so we had to be wrapped before Christmas on Halloween. And so I wrote it in 8 days. Now we had a fully fleshed out outline, so I knew exactly what it was. And then normally I would write the first draft and then Patrick would chase me. We didn't have time for that. I wrote it. I think he did chase. I did think he did go through and change some things and tweak some things. And then we sent it to them, to the Weinsteins. And they came back and said, we don't have enough time. We're afraid it's, we'll get in production. It'll end up screwing up Drive Angry. You won't be able to go off the edge. I mean, so we didn't do it. So then for years, we would go back and forth with the Weinsteins and with Malik. And then right before, I guess maybe a year before the current Halloween movie, we had come up with a brand new concept. And the concept was they wanted to do another reboot. And, we were going to retell the story and see basically the opening of Trick is the opening of our Halloween movie where you replace Trick with Michael, and he's in high school and he kills for the first time. He kills at this party.
I mean, you get some. I mean, now that you say that, like there are just some really Michael Myers vibes to that. I mean
because it was our Michael Myers. Now there's a lot of stuff that obviously changed because we ended up having to change the villain and we turned it into a completely different. All of the villains are white and all of the heroes are not. And so I guess we're making some sort of social statement, but yeah, it started as our Halloween, which, writers do that all the time. I was painting today. I have paint on my fingers.
Well, that's great in a way, because the reason Michael Myers is so scary is because you don't know anything about him, really.
Yeah.
Look, you can't see his face.
Well, now you do.
Well, yeah.
Now he has like 3 different storylines. So
right,
okay.
but he was scary because you couldn't see his face. You didn't really know much about him, and that's why Trick is kind of so scary. I mean, not to give too much away, but like, you didn't know anything about the guy. He gave a fake address to the school. Like, he always had his face painted so you couldn't like make out what his face looked like. And he was creepy. He could be anyone. And that is the scariest part of it.
I mean, all of that was supposed to be our Michael. He was a kid who went to the school, and nobody knew who he really was until he started killing. And then they start to try to find out, and they don't know anything about him. It was, I always liked what Carpenter said about it. And I can't remember the exact quote, but it was, Michael is this mist that rolls into town, and there's no rhyme or reason why he kills who he kills, but he kills. And there's no defining him. There's no going back into his past. I appreciate what Zombie did, but we all would do things, when offered a story, we would do things differently. And I like the idea that we don't know who Michael is, that we don't know why he's doing it, that he could be the guy next door that walks upstairs one night and kills his sister. I mean, I like that, bad guys can be the next door neighbor.
I agree with you that Rob Zombie definitely had a different take on it. It's interesting when you get kind of the perspective of, oh, that's why he's so messed up. And maybe you understand and you almost kind of feel bad for him. Mm-hmm. But it is scarier when you know nothing about them, and that, like you said, it could be your neighbor. And that's what
the reboot's done. It's taken it a whole different way where you do know nothing about him. And they've even ex-nayed like the whole sister storyline as well, because they just want him just to be a mindless killer.
Because isn't that the scariest thing about the human condition, is the things that we can't understand?
And the twist. Good twist at the end. Bravo.
We do only have a few minutes left, guys, and we have a couple of questions that were submitted that Luke sent me via video to play.
Yeah, I had some audience people sending me questions, and they even, play them, Jet.
Hi, Todd. I've got a question about your film Jason X and why Jason looks so different. I'm actually talking about Jason's hockey mask for the first half of the film. It looks quite different to the rest of the film series. It's the first time we've seen Jason with a mask that is quite pointy and jagged and doesn't have the chevrons or color as all the other masks. I'm wondering, is this something that you wrote, or was this a decision made by the design or effects team?
That was all Stefan. When you have the guy who designed RoboCop, you sort of stay out of the way. All I really described was that when Jason's put back together, he's part machine and part flesh. And
Terminator.
Yeah. And I thought of it. There was a Stallone movie where I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was Judge Dredd.
I know the one.
He runs into a guy out in the wilderness, and the guy's sort of half human and half, and it looks painful. That's what I imagined. Stefan went in a different direction. He went more RoboCop. That makes sense because he designed RoboCop. As for the mask itself, that was his artistic take on it. He kept the slash in it, which I always liked. I like the mask a lot, actually. I like it much more than the rounder masks, and I like the edginess to it. But it's just me.
Hi, Todd. It's Bonnie from Down Under. What would you think about doing a Friday the 13th down here, out in the Aussie bush somewhere?
If I can hang out on the Gold Coast, yeah. Pretty waters. Get me some. I've been to. Where are you, Luke? I've been to Australia several times.
I'm on the coast, sort of. I'm in Rockhampton, so I'm like just off the coast. But I'm like north of Gold Coast, north of Brisbane.
Okay. Yeah, I love Australia. I've been there several times.
But that girl, she's talking about the outback though. She's thinking like Ayers Rock or like out in the bush, kind of like what Wolf Creek did,
Wolf Creek.
What is that girl doing in the bushes with tits like that?
She was doing a final girl shot for us. Actually, that's an upcoming guest for us, but we'll plug her later. She's doing the sex talk show with us. She's actually a stripper, and she's doing like the
stripper that liked the video. Oh,
yeah.
Do we have like
yeah? And she went all like dressed as a final girl with the pitchfork. I thought, go girl! Like she was owning this tonight. And then, I think we got one more question, James.
Yeah, we got one more.
The success of Halloween 2018, it seems like everyone's reviving old horror franchises. I know that there was a sequel planned for the original My Bloody Valentine. I was just wondering if that's something you'd consider doing for your movie, or would you do a mashup with the original, or would you prefer another shot at Friday the 13th?
I mean, they're never going to let me. I put Jason in space. It's never going to happen. There's a very long list of guys who could do a fantastic job. I am not on that list. And whoever puts me on the list is going to get fired. Would I do it? I mean, sure. I love the character. I mean, when we went down this road, we planned. Certainly, it was just a verbal plan, but we planned two movies to follow Jason X, and 12 people went to see the movie, so that wasn't going to happen.
I was one of them.
Do we have time for a lightning round of horror trivia? Do we have?
Yeah, we do. We do. We're going to go over as long as Todd's happy.
Cool.
Are you happy to go over, Todd?
All right, Todd.
Do whatever you do.
We're going to test your horror knowledge. So.
Oh, I suck at horror knowledge, but yes, please do.
Let's do this. So in your version of My Bloody Valentine, the killer was Tom Hanniger, who was hallucinating that it was, Harry Warden carrying out the murders. Who was the killer in the 1981 version?
Was it Axel?
It was Axel. It was Axel Palmer. Good job. All right. Ding.
I never watched that movie, by the way.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm screwing up your fast.
No, you're doing great. Who was the original killer of the Friday the 13th franchise?
Who was the original killer?
Who's the first killer? Who was the first killer in the
I've
franchise?
seen Scream.
So you're gonna get this right then.
Yeah, Mama.
Pamela Voorhees. Right?
It would have been great in the movie if we could have worked it out.
Okay.
It's funny if you didn't know.
So a lot of people don't.
Oh, I know.
But they've seen Scream.
Well, then they just
even if you haven't seen Friday the 13th, you've seen Scream.
And they still don't get it right. So Jamie Kennedy, who was in Trick.
He's a lovely man.
He seemed lovely. What was the name of his character in Scream?
Oh, I have no idea. No, I don't care.
Randy Meeks. It was Randy Meeks.
I didn't remember either.
It was Randy.
I remember Randy.
He was the horror nerd. He was.
I just remember
I know who he was. I don't remember his name.
He got filleted.
He certainly did. All right, I'm going to cut out one of the questions because we're running out of time. But this is the most important one. What is the final body count in Jason X?
Oh wait, what?
you are the most important. What's the final body count in Jason X?
Oh, I don't know, millions.
I'm taking that.
Goes through the space station. We don't know how many people were there.
All right. Well,
millions.
If we're gonna get technical here, 23, unless you're counting those virtual reality girls, and then it's 25.
No, you can't count them.
Okay, then it's 23.
You count me twice. You can't count me twice.
I did not count you twice.
Okay.
So there you go. So you can't count the virtual reality girls.
You could.
They love premarital sex.
They do. They love premarital sex.
I did too.
That's why you died, Todd. That's why you died.
That was a great scene too.
Hey, he was a good guy. He tried to save his gay friend, and then his gay friend tried to save him.
Was he gay? I think he was just like scrawny.
I don't know.
The scrawny guy with the curly, he was a big old bottom.
Oh, Jeff's a bigot. We know that.
How can I be a bigot when I'm gay?
Go on Instagram.
Because you still are.
Are you done? Are you done? Get on Instagram and follow Todd at Todd_Farmer. Todd, you are so much fun. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Actually, Todd, We would love to have you back. Like, we'll give you a break. Like, 6 months, 12 months. We'd love to have you back again. Would you do it?
Absolutely.
If somebody freaks out on you, text me, and if I'm around, I'll pop out here to my tool shed.
I'll sleep.
Todd, I mean, feel free to send some fun photos our way. I'm just saying, you got the number.
Make sure they have nipples in them, apparently. He's going for the nipples.
Yeah.
I like nipples.
Apparently. Honey, me too. We'll talk later.
Thank you so much, Todd.
No, thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it, and we had a lot of fun today, and hope to chat to you soon.
Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries.
See you guys. Take care.